It's time to talk about the teams that we can't quite get a handle on. Whether that's going to be teams that, I don't know, you look at that over-under win total and you're like, that doesn't really help me think about how I perceive that team. Or you look at what they've done with their roster construction, offseason, all that jazz, and you think, I don't really get any of that, and I don't know who you are, and I don't know where you're going. And to help me do that, we have Dave Helman. Dave, how you doing today?
I am wonderful, Derek. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, Robert right now is on vacation. He is over in Italy. And so we're bringing you in to help us out, do a little co-hosting here. And I think I'm really excited for this. Unfortunately, before we really get into the meat of the show, we've got some bad news about Tristan Wirfs, obviously. It came out, I want to say a couple of days ago, where this show is going to come out on Friday. I believe this news came out on Wednesday. He's going to miss the early part of the season with a knee surgery that cropped up this offseason. He had a little bit of a setback, and he's going to have some issues where he's probably going to miss at least the first 4 games of the season, if not more, recovering from this knee surgery. And just to paint the picture for the people, their first 4 games this year are at Falcons, at Texans, versus the New York Jets, and versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, 3 of those teams have really, really good pass rushes. One of them is going to try to tell you that they do now, with the Atlanta Falcons having just spent 2 first-round picks on some pass rushers. But Dave, when you look at, kind of what the Bucs are and what they were last year, obviously now transitioning into a new offensive coordinator, and then you look at this schedule that they're going to have to play now without Tristan Wirfs, how do you feel about how they're going to maybe get off to a start to this season?
I mean, just in general, right? I mean, you potentially are facing life without your best player. And I mean, it's a tricky conversation because quarterbacks are weighted so heavily. But if you go down the Buccaneers roster, I mean, Tristan Wirfs is arguably, he at least has a case to be the best left tackle in football. He's certainly in that stratosphere. And he's so much fun to watch. I think if we eliminate quarterbacks, then, I mean, this is very high up there with just a devastating loss that impacts the team. I mean, he's such a good player. He's such a fun player. It legitimately bummed me out when I heard this news because I do think it affects the Bucs' trajectory that much. Not to say that they can't weather the storm. I mean, this is a team that had so much success in the screen game last year. I'm sure they can dial up ways to be successful without him for a month or so. But all summer long, Derek, I mean, you can tell me if I'm crazy, but throughout the offseason, I've been formulating a take that, the Bucs are for real. The Bucs are a team that could actually contend. They're not a cute team that could just win a bad division. This is a team that could win a lot of games and give the best teams in the NFC a hard time. And not to say that that's not true anymore, but it's tough if they really don't have him. So I'm coping right now really by saying, well, he's 26 years old. He is a super freak athlete. He's one of those rare guys. So I'm coping by saying, well, maybe he can beat this timeline. Maybe he got the procedure now. It's early July. There's still basically 2 months until anybody's got to play football. Maybe he can beat it out and not have to go on PUP. That's what I'm doing over here. I don't know how delusional that is, but that's certainly what I'm hoping because I'm really excited about this Bucs team, provided they have one of the best left tackles in football available.
I mean, that's a good point, though. Guy's in the prime of his career, and he really is one of the best athletes at the position. It's not often we think of an offensive lineman like a true weapon for the offense, but when you think of the true best tackles like the Penei Sewells, Trent Williams, obviously now Tristan Wirfs, those guys, you can kind of center the offense around them. And you mentioned their screen game. It was really good because obviously Liam Cohen put some stuff well together and they tied the run game to the pass game really well and they called it at the right times. But it was also because you have this left tackle who's 315 pounds and is the best athlete on the field, and he can go find a safety or a linebacker out at the second level. And now without him being able to do that, I do think maybe that is going to hurt them a little bit. I do wonder, I hope that it doesn't feel like the Trent Williams absences because, when we've seen the 49ers over the past handful of years, there's splits when Trent Williams is on the field and when he's off the field. It's almost like it's a completely different offense. And I do think now that they're adding the element of new offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay, that could complicate some things. But hopefully they can ride the storm. Falcons should still be beatable. Jets should still be beatable. And I think even with Tristan Wirfs, the Texans games and the Eagles games were probably going to be very tough anyway. So if he does miss these 4 games and they can still get through it 2-2, that's probably fine. If, especially like you're saying, he comes back by week 5 and he looks like Tristan Wirfs because he's the
Yeah.
best athlete on in the sport.
This is one of those things where, I mean, it all sounds good. Like you're like, okay, like you're doing the mental math. Like, okay, if it's 8 weeks, then that'll put him back at week 5. But it's usually not that easy, right? Like no two human bodies are the same. It takes some guys longer. Knock on wood, we hope not, but maybe this is a bigger deal than they think. It's too early to know, but like we said, I mean, a 26-year-old guy who, I mean, he's one of those NFL players who's just not like the rest of us, right? I mean, we're not like any NFL players, but
He makes it
Tristan
very
Wirfs
clear.
Yeah, he's in a special category. So if you're gonna bet on a guy to defy the expectations when it comes to an injury, he seems like the type. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I love watching the guy play. I definitely, like when you talk about the special class of tackle who A, rarely needs help, and B, like you said, can move in space and erase guys from the play. There's just not very many of them. You know, like Mailata, Penei Sewell come to mind, but there just aren't very many of those guys. And Baker's a mobile quarterback. We mentioned the screen game, but I think you're right. I mean, the new OC in Tampa, I think Josh Grizzard, you better
He was on the
design
staff
it.
last year, thankfully. That
You
helps a
better
little bit,
design
maybe.
it right, though. Like, you better be on your P's and Q's quick because teams are going to zero in on that. So, like I said, I'm coping right now. I hope Tristan Wirfs is available for the vast majority of the season. But it was a bummer to hear that.
Yeah, it definitely was. So good luck to the Bucs, and obviously, good luck to him on his recovery. Hopefully, he can come back pretty healthy, and we see the best of Tristan Wirfs by October, and we forget that any of this even happened. All right. With some of the Tristan Wirfs news out of the way, let's get into the meat of the show. Like I said, we're talking about teams that we just, for one reason or another, we spent this entire offseason looking at moves and looking at win totals and for all these teams. But for some reason, we've got 7 or 8 teams here that we still don't feel good about how we feel about them. And so I'm going to let you start, Dave. Who do you want to start with for teams that you can't feel like you sink your teeth into right now?
Well, let me just say, I love this topic because I love anything where you can give somebody the prompt and 2 people will come to completely different conclusions. Because, right, like we hopped on a call to talk about this show and you and I had completely different ideas of what we were looking at. So yeah, like Derrik, maybe you were a little more fixated on like, okay, well, does the hype, does the win total, does the conversation match what I think about this team? And I really looked at it as just the handful of teams where I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what has this offseason been? How do you see yourselves? And I don't think there's a team that you can start with before we talk about the Miami Dolphins, right? And I'm sorry to Dolphins fans. I bet you feel like you're a little bit of a punching bag right now. And I'll be clear before we get into this, Derrik, like, the Dolphins can be a pretty good team. That's not what I'm saying when I say that I'm confused by who they are. They can be a pretty good team. This could be a playoff team. But I don't know. Do you think I'm crazy if I just feel like very little they've done this entire offseason makes a ton of sense? Like, I just don't see the cohesion.
I really struggle with it too. They are definitely a team where, and I think the Dolphins are such a perfect example for this exercise because when you look at the way they've put their roster together and the way they've really indexed to the way that the offense is built and some of their best players are a little bit older, like Tyreek Hill and stuff like that, it's like, okay, you kind of need this to work this year. Like they've already invested into a Tagovailoa. We kind of know what Mike McDaniel's offense is supposed to be at this point. So you have a good idea of who they are, and they've invested a lot of money into this version of the team. So you kind of got to win this year. But then you look at certain parts of the roster and it's like, okay, your left tackle just retired. So you're going to have to put in effectively a rookie in Patrick Paul, who's now going to be your left tackle. You over leverage a ton of resources to go get a guard in the draft, which like you needed interior players, but you also needed more draft picks because you're losing a lot of bodies on defense. And then you look at their secondary, and I know they swap out Jalen Ramsey for Minkah Fitzpatrick. They get it a little bit younger. That's all fine. But like this secondary is still very bad. And if you're trying to convince yourself that you're going to be this team that can, win 10, 11 games, get to the playoffs, and really try to give it one more run in the playoffs the way that they've kind of struggled to the last couple of years, I don't see how you square those ambitions with what this secondary and really their defensive front are.
And really, your first point is the one that I keep coming back to, and it's not X's and O's. Like it's got nothing to do with how good we think the Dolphins can be. But I'll never forget, man. It's burned in my brain. Sunday Night Football, last week of the season. Vikings are playing the Lions. It's this big game. The whole NFL world is focused on it. And Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, puts out a statement basically saying, like, we're going to ride with Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, which, like, guess what? If you need a statement, it's not good. Like, if you need to let the masses know that you're not going to make a change, that is the first sign of a problem. Because, like, if everything was really great, then it's just status quo. Maybe a few days later you get asked about it and you're like, well, no, like, why would we make a change? I like Chris and Mike. To make a statement is a whole different thing. And the quote in the statement even said, we're sticking with Chris and Mike. However, continuity in leadership is not to be confused with acceptance that the status quo is good enough. So on the last night of the season, Stephen Ross said, what we just saw wasn't enough. And by the way, the Dolphins were playing for a playoff spot on the final day of the season. They were technically alive.
I'm so glad you said that, because we spent the entire, like, all of November and December doing this with the Bengals, right? Where we're like, oh, they can fight for the playoffs. They can get in. They've got this high-powered offense. The same was true of the Dolphins. It's just nobody gave a shit about the Dolphins because, I don't know, maybe we just don't think, Tua's as good as Joe Burrow, whatever it was. Like, we just didn't care about the Dolphins, but they actually had better chances to make the playoffs than the Bengals pretty much the entire season.
I think the problem is that the Dolphins biffed it every single time they had a chance. Like, Tua came back, and I remember they lost to Arizona in, like, a really fun game, like when he first came back. And they got their asses kicked by Green Bay on Thanksgiving night. Like, every time they had a marquee chance to be like, look, we're still good. We got Tua. We can score 40 points. They just biffed it. And I think that's why people didn't care by the end. But yeah, so 8-9, playing for a playoff spot. Tua misses a huge chunk of the season. You have all the reason in the world to just sort of call this a mulligan and say, like, yeah, we're good. We're going to roll forward. But the owner is saying, like, this wasn't good enough, and I need to make that clear to the public. And that is the first sign of a problem for me, because when the owner feels that way, it's almost like, do I think Mike McDaniel deserves to be fired for what he's done so far? No, not at all. But if that's where we are with the owner, it makes me think, like, would you be better off just cleaning house? And, y'all did a bunch of trades, y'all signed all these contracts, you went all in, and it didn't work. And is it time to consider a pivot? And they didn't do it, but the team didn't get better. I mean, Teron Armstead retires. Calais Campbell leaves for Arizona. We know about the Ramsey trade and the Jonnu Smith trade, which, by the way, Jonnu Smith
signing Darren Waller to replace him is like
signing Darren Waller out of retirement, which, like, it's not as if Darren Waller was lighting the world on fire when he retired, by the way. I mean, Jonnu Smith was the best thing going for that offense down the second half of that season. I know, I don't think there's any love lost between the Dolphins and Javon Holland, so I'm not trying to say that they're losing sleep over that, but that's still a talented player that walked out your door. Minkah Fitzpatrick offsets that, or honestly is probably an improvement, but the cornerback room, as you said, still very terrifying. Don't love what I'm seeing there. Maybe you could go out and get a vet. I laughed because Asante Samuel Jr. is still sitting out on the open market, but Asante Samuel Sr. was on a podcast like last week calling Mike McDaniel a pushover and Chris Greer spineless. So I'm like, all right,
Really?
maybe Asante Samuel Jr. is not going to Miami after all. So I don't. They're not a bad team, and if Tua's healthy, they'll be fun. I do think we do this with receivers a lot. I think where there are so many good receivers that if you have any kind of setback, you just get left by the wayside, and that's what's happening to Tyreek Hill. I'm sure the end of Tyreek Hill's prime is coming at some point, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's got one more really impressive season in him. He was battling injuries last year. So it's not to say the Dolphins can't be a good team, but if 8-9 and missing the playoffs was enough to put everybody on notice, then what does this year need to be? To me, you got to make the playoffs. Ideally, you would win the division. I don't see that happening. And obviously, the fact that the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since 2000 hangs over this franchise. Do I see this being the year that changes? Not really. So I'm just confused because you kept everybody, But based on what I'm seeing, the standard seems like it's going to be very hard to meet. So that's my spiel about the Dolphins. I just find them very frustrating because they are at the expectation seems to be that they're like a 10 or 11 win team, and I'm just not convinced.
Yeah, they're running it back, but they're kind of putting everyone on notice that they're running it back, but also didn't make the team better. So they're perfect example of why this exercise even exists.
It reminds me a lot of last year's Cowboys, to be honest with you, where you're just like, okay, you didn't give the coach a new deal, and you kind of intimated that he might be in trouble, but the team's not better. So what are we doing? I don't know. Like I said, will I be shocked if Tua throws for 4,000 yards? Not at all. But I still think the messaging this year is very strange.
Yeah, that team is on thin ice a little bit. All right, that like you said at the top, I think we both approached this from a little bit of a different angle. You took some more of your teams from, I don't really know who you are or where you're going. And my angle was more, I kind of was looking at some of these win totals going into the season, and I was like, I either think that's crazy or I look at the win total and I'm like, that just doesn't even help me frame how I think about this team. And the one I want to start with for that is actually the New England Patriots. Dave, do you know what their win total over under is this year?
I do, because we talked about it, but I'm gonna feign ignorance because it blew my mind when you said it. It blew my mind.
To blow the listeners' minds, it's 7.5 wins, which is higher than teams like the Jaguars and the Raiders, who I think have made some changes that we all appreciate. And why I think this was so confusing for me to look at is like, okay, there is stuff to get excited about from like a name brand perspective. Drake May, I think, is an exciting young quarterback. Mike Vrabel, I think, we all believe is a good coach and probably going to be better than Gerard Mayo. And then they have a handful of other stars, like Christian Barmore is very good. Christian Gonzalez is very good. I think, the name brand of Stephon Diggs is probably more appealing than the actual player, and that's kind of plays into this. And that's kind of what I mean, where like, Stephon Diggs, okay, I get it. We all remember what he was at his peak with Buffalo and stuff like that, but he's a 32-year-old receiver coming off of a kind of okay season and coming off of an ACL tear. Like, that just is a kind of scary profile for a guy you expect to be your wide receiver one. And then a lot of the other additions they made on offense around Drake May are rookies. It's Kyle Williams in the draft. It's Travion Henderson in the draft. It's Will Campbell in the draft. And these are, Dave, I'm sure you like some of these players too, but they're rookies. Like, at some point, you can only expect so much. And then on the defensive side, obviously everything completely cratered last year with Gerard Mayo and him taking over some of the play calling responsibilities, with Belichick gone and stuff. And I think there's some expectation that Vrabel is going to fix that. But Vrabel's not a play caller. Like, that's not what he does. It's not what he did in Tennessee. And even when he was calling plays in Houston, those defenses were worse than when Romeo Crennel was calling them at the time. So it's just like, I get some of the excitement with Drake May and you bring in the new coach, Mike Vrabel, but I still look at the roster and I'm like, how much of a miracle fixture do they think the head coach and the quarterback can really be in year one?
Let me throw this take out there without opening a can of worms, because this is a whole different conversation. But this feels like it could be a byproduct of the normalizing and the widespread access of gambling and the effect that it has. Because like 10 years ago, sickos like us and sickos that listen to the Athletic Football Show who are like really dialed in, they're the only ones paying attention to this Patriots team. And they're like, ooh, like if I can get that, like, let's say if I told you that the over under was, let's say 6.5, would you be in on that, or do you need it to be lower?
At 6.5, I can start to take it. And that's perfect, because if they get over 6.5, you're not necessarily saying they're a playoff team. But at 7.5, you're kind of implying they should be a playoff team if they get over.
So I can't back this up. This is recklessly speculating. But like 10 years ago, maybe this over under is 6.5, because only the sickos are making the effort to bet, and only the sickos are paying attention to it. And us, you and I and people who pay attention to it are like, ooh, Patriots at 6.5 is a tasty treat. Like, I really like what's going on with Drake May and all this other stuff. But now it is just a much more widespread thing. And if you put the Patriots out there at 6.5, everybody's jumping all over that, because it's as easy as opening your phone and putting $10 down on a bet. And so I think lines get inflated. And I definitely think that's what's happening here, because I think of myself as a Patriots enthusiast, just like you. Like, I love Drake May. I love the additions that they've made. Like the rookie class looks so much fun. I like the defensive additions that they made. Like Robert Spillane is one of my favorite like unheralded players in the league. Carlton
That
Davis
dude's
is
a psycho.
he's a crazy person. He's great. Carlton Davis is really underrated for what he does. Like the combo of Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez is a lot of fun. Mike Vrabel is a good coach who knows how to win on the margins and make the most of his talent. There's a lot to like, but when you tell me that I've got to like him more than 7 wins, like now we're saying, oh, so all these rookies are going to be great. None of these veterans are going to have significant injuries. Drake May he's going to take the next step and just kick ass right away, and it's all going to be great. And the Patriots are going to win 9 games. And like that's definitely a step too far for me. Like I see the Patriots as a plucky team that wins like 7 games. That would be my guess. And maybe they can do more than that, but that's how I feel about them.
That's exactly how I feel about them. And I thought that was going to be, like, coming into this offseason, I thought that was going to be me feeling like kind of optimistic about who they are. But now I look at the 7.5 win total and I'm like, if I'm going to be like objectively optimistic, per the betting odds and stuff, I have to almost pick them as a playoff team. I think I'm good on that. Like, I don't know, man. It just seems it's hard to square with like how enthusiastic I thought I was a month ago compared to like objectively how enthusiastic I would actually have to be about them.
In a division where I'm just writing off the possibility of them winning the division, then I can't get behind that. Like if they played in the AFC South, maybe I'd be banging this drum a little bit harder, but they don't. They play with Buffalo, and barring something terrible, Buffalo's going to win this division again. So that's where I start that conversation, and that immediately puts a cap on them for me. But yeah, maybe the better way to say it, and this is a good thing, by the way, I don't want to sound bummed out by it, but like the NFL is more popular than it's ever been. And there are more people paying attention to like the Patriots over under than ever before. And so I think it's harder than ever to like find wins that way. Cause I'm not going to talk about them, but I think the Arizona Cardinals fall in this same boat. The Arizona Cardinals, the over-under I looked at was like 8.5 wins. And I'm like, holy crap, guys, you're telling me I got to think the Cardinals are a 9-win team to believe in them? Like, I like the Cardinals, but like we're saying, like maybe that's a step too far.
And kind of to the betting thing with the Patriots specifically, doesn't it feel like the thing that you want to bet on is like this is going to be the rookie or the young quarterback who's going to take the year 2 leap into being the Justin Herbert, the Joe Burrow, the whatever it is. And so I get why we want to do that with Drake May. I mean, I want to do that with Drake May, but not like put money on them to win 8 games with Drake May. That's where it makes it complicated.
There's 6 of those guys, by the way.
That's the other problem. Exactly.
There are 6 NFL cities who all think that their guy's about to take over the league in year 2. Hopefully they're all right, but the odds say maybe not.
Yeah, the odds say some of those guys are not going to be who you want them to be, at least not in year 2. Maybe by, end of the rookie contract, all that stuff. But sometimes this stuff does not happen as easy as it does for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and those guys. All right. Who's your next team that you just this offseason can't quite get a good feel for?
I promise I do have some under the radar takes coming, but I'm going to hammer the other one that's been pissing me off all year. And again, I'll apologize to these fans ahead of time because I'm sure they've been catching hell. But Derek, what are the Cincinnati Bengals doing, man? Like what exactly do the Cincinnati Bengals want to be? Like, are you a Super Bowl contender that employs a top 5 NFL MVP caliber quarterback and just paid a small nation's GDP to bring back his supporting cast? I mean, Jamar T. I don't think Gesicki gets mentioned enough. I know he's not on that level, but like he had a nice year in that offense. I think that's a big spot. Top 100 pick at guard. Like on one hand, they look like they're loading up. They look like they know that they have personnel that could get them to a Super Bowl, and they're acting like it. And then on the other side, I mean, we don't need to rehash it, but we know what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. And let me just say this. I don't actually care if they want to pay Trey Hendrickson. I don't really care. Like, I can see the argument for and against. Trey Hendrickson is north of 30. He's had back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. So what are the odds that that production continues? And especially as he gets older. Like, I understand the concerns of paying Trey Hendrickson. I think it's fair to say he's a wonderful player. He's probably not on that tippy top tier. Like, he just doesn't have the freakish athleticism of a Myles Garrett. He's not as young as Micah Parsons. I understand it. So trade him then. Trey Hendrickson told you at the Super Bowl that he wanted to be traded if he couldn't get a deal. You had like 3 months to figure something out. And I get it. The return's probably not going to be what you would prefer for a 30-year-old end who needs a new deal. But I don't know. Deal with it. Do something. Pay him or trade him. But instead, you're doing this dance again like you did with Jamar and T, where we're going into training camp. He's not going to show up. How long is it going to drag out? How much practice time is he going to miss? How good is his conditioning going to be? How long is it going to take for him to be ready to play 11-on-11 football? Because that's not the same thing as working out and being in shape. And oh, by the way, the guy that you selected to be his eventual replacement's doing the same thing. He's sitting out because you don't want to guarantee him his money either. And by the way, he might be a wonderful player, but he's like the rawest prospect of the major pass rushers. Like, if James Pierce Jr., who had a double-digit sack season in the SEC, was the guy holding out, I would at least be like, all right, well, that sucks, but I have a better idea of what he is. Like, Shamar Stewart needs all the reps he can get, and he's already missed a month. So I'm at a loss because, again, if you wanted to trade Trey and get a pick for him and maybe you have like an extra second round pick or an extra third round pick, whatever it is, either way, that's another rookie drafted highly who could be coming in to help you supplement your offense. Because let's not get it twisted. The Bengals defense isn't going to be the reason why they get to a Super Bowl. At this point, I would rather have 2 rookies that I could just throw into the mix than maybe not get Trey Hendrickson until like September 10th. I hate the mixed messaging of it all. Like, are we pushing to win a Super Bowl and bad decisions be damned? Or are we trying to get younger and cheaper, which like that's admirable too, but we can't be trying to do both things at the same time. It's maddening.
And this goes back to an issue that really the Zach Taylor Bengals have had for a long time is like and I don't necessarily think this is his fault. Some of this has been like Joe Burrow's had injury issues early in the season and all that stuff, but they don't win a lot of games in September. And so now I think the offense will be fine this year, right? Like, Joe Burrow's going into the offseason healthy. You've got your receivers paid. Nobody's holding out now. Like, the offense should be better in September than it has been typically. But if Trey Hendrickson is either not going to play to start the season or not going to be, acclimated, like you said, because he's not practicing as much. And then the same is true of Shamar Stewart, who also is a rookie and one of the more raw prospects. Then you're leaving your pass rush to be like year 5 of Joseph Osai, who hasn't really been a whole lot for them. You're hoping that Myles Murphy finally takes the step. Cam Sample, who really is more of like a run defender than a guy who is a pass rusher. And so you're looking at a September defense that is going to have no pass rush and a secondary that, it's a lot of young guys that you're hoping can take the step. Like, Dax Hill was nice last year, but obviously gets hurt, and we don't know how well he's going to come back. And then you've got a younger player at like Demetrius Knight at linebacker. Like, there's a chance that even for as bad as the defense was last year, that if Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart aren't playing, it's even worse. And I know they're trying to sell us that, Lou Anarumo's defense was too complicated for the young guys, and we're going to bring in Algo. I'm sorry, man. This is the NFL. Figure it out. Like, I just don't buy that line of thinking that like, we're going to simplify the defense and this college coach is going to make it easier for the young guys. Like, I just don't. Like, that's a story that sounds nice on paper, and then you get to October and you're like, these guys the roster just still isn't good enough, and that's the biggest issue. So for a team that, like you said, clearly knows that they have an elite quarterback, knows that they have 2 special pieces around him that he loves playing with, you would think that they have clear aspirations of being a Super Bowl team, but they just have never operated that way, and they very clearly aren't this offseason.
And unfortunately, again, there are conversations that go beyond football. You deal with the ownership hand that you're dealt, and that's, the Brown family is notorious for this. I think it's funny because, and credit to them, They chased off Carson Palmer by being this way. Andrew Whitworth has talked extensively about his journey with this organization. They did recognize what they had in Joe, and they paid him, and they've committed to making him happy. I mean, he got everything he wanted this offseason. I'm sure he wants Trey back too, but he got his receivers, he got his tight end. They drafted an offensive lineman. They've moved heaven and earth to make the offensive line good. It hasn't always worked out, but they've tried. But like, I want to talk to them and be like, hey, if you're serious about this, it's got to be the whole roster. It's got to be all the time. Like, you don't get to sit back because you've made Joe Burrow happy. I mean, not if you really are serious about winning this thing. And that's kind of what it feels like, where it's like, man, we just gave all this money to the offense. Like, what do you want us to do? And I'm like, I want you to either pay the end, or like I said, if you want to pivot into a different strategy, that's fine, but do it. You got to commit to a vision. I can't be going into training camp with the Bengals every year wondering when somebody important is going to show up. It's very rarely is it a recipe for success.
I feel like they have like 2 years max of them operating this way before Joe Burrow like fully loses his mind. And to be clear, he should. Like, you're one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like, you should have a team around you that is operating the way that, Josh Allen's Bills have operated, Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, all these other teams, obviously Jalen Hurts with the Eagles, the way that team operates and tries to maximize their windows. Like, the fact that he hasn't quite gotten that is extremely frustrating. So they are, if we end up in a spot next year where the Bengals are again fighting to be 8-9, 9-8, despite scoring 32 points a game, I don't think either of us are going to be surprised.
I won't be, but I won't be surprised if just by like the sheer firepower of what they can do, like, I would, it's early, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals made the playoffs. Like, I think they can get over that hump. I mean, they almost did it after everything that went wrong. So that's the frustrating thing. Again, like, I'm certainly not saying this is a bad team, but I just, I need to understand the vision a little bit more than what we're seeing from them now.
It's hard to square the ceiling of the offense with the ceiling of like the team as a whole. I think that's why they're a team that is like very frustrating. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Bengals, hopefully they don't end up in quite as a weird. So I mean, maybe if they win that Washington game last year, they'd have been in the playoffs. But either way, bizarre team, bizarre operation. We're going to move on to my next one. Another AFC quarterback who I think has kind of been in hell in a different way for the last handful of years. And that to me is the Jacksonville Jaguars are a very weird team for me to get a handle on. And part of it is like, I love Trevor Lawrence. I've said that on this show. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for, and just a lot of circumstantial stuff has not gone his way. And there are parts of me that want to be excited for the stuff around him. Like, obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. was immediately like a top 10 receiver. Like, in the way that we talk about Jaden Daniels as a superstar quarterback immediately for a rookie, like Brian Thomas Jr. did that as a receiver. Like, he was awesome last year. And so incredible. You have that. You draft Travis Hunter. So in theory, you kind of have what the Bengals are doing, right? Where you've got these two just awesome vertical receivers who can push the ball down the field. And then in theory, you've got Liam Cohen, who's this really nice play caller who's going to come in. But also, he's really only ever done it for 1 year at the NFL level. And now he's going to be a head coach. He also took that job under really weird circumstances with him not answering the phone from the Bucs and stuff like that. So you've got this just whole bizarre set of circumstances. And then even when you consider his offense, so much of what they did, we just talked about the Bucs at the top of the show and all the stuff they were doing. Well, that was like a top 5 offensive line in the league last year, Tristan Wirfs included. This Jaguars unit, all they did to supplement their offensive line this year was sign backups. They signed Robert Hainsey and Patrick McCary, who they might be functional, but it's not the same as like drafting a Graham Barton in the first round the way the Bucs did last year. And so and then that doesn't even get to the defense, which the defense, obviously they were way worse than they should have been last year, right? And so there's part of me that is like, okay, well maybe this year they can play a little bit more to their level. And I think last year they were playing below their level. But then I think about it more. What is their level? Like, they have probably 3 good players, right? Like, I think Trayvon Walker is good. I think Josh Hines-Allen is good.
Okay,
and I
but
think Tyson Campbell is good.
The 3 players, Derek, are really good.
They're really good.
I just don't know about
the other players are really bad.
I don't know about the other guys. That's the problem.
Exactly. And so that makes them it gets into we've done this with the Chargers defense 3-4 years ago, where it's like, okay, the 3 best players are awesome. the other players are not good enough. Where does that actually land them? And that's kind of how I feel about the Jaguars defense. So they've just got all these factors where, again, you look at the offense, the three best players are awesome, and I believe in them. The defense, the three best players are awesome, I believe in them. What is the floor for the rest of the players? I don't know. So, like, this could be a team, like, it could crater again, and they win 6 games, and they look bad. This could also be the 10-win wildcard team, and I can't get a feel for where I actually land on it.
I have a very toxic relationship with the Jacksonville Jaguars
Oh,
because
you and me both, brother.
I think a lot of people do, because like there's a lot to like on paper. Yeah, it's
they're the idiot version of the Chargers for us, like the idiot cousin version of, like, everyone in the media. We love to do every year. Oh, the Chargers, man, they're gonna be good. They're gonna win 11 games, and we also do this with the Jaguars. It's just like a slight tick lower.
It's a long off season. We just have too much time to sit and think about all the crazy stuff that can happen. But yeah, it's like a toxic, like, boyfriend or girlfriend where you're just like waiting on them to change, or like, they get a new job and you're like, this is the one. This time it'll be different. And it's never different. But here I am again. I hesitate to say I believe, but like, I'm excited about this team. I mean, all the pieces, not all, a lot of the pieces you just mentioned are very fun. I mean, I have not given up on Trevor Lawrence. I think the flashes he's shown are way too exciting to write off. And I think, look, I get it. He has fallen so short of the amount of hype that was put on him. He's still a really good player. Like, he's so fun to watch. He's willing to try stuff. He can make insane throws. He never gets the amount of credit he deserves for his athleticism. He can do all of that very fun mech warrior quarterback stuff. I mean, I don't want to compare him to any of the really good ones, but he can do that stuff. Like, he can. We've seen it. So I refuse to give up on that, even if he has been disappointing. And then, yeah, BTJ, who, by the way, Trevor and BTJ didn't even get a full season together. Travis Hunter is very exciting. Yeah, dude, BTJ did a lot of that with Mac Jones. Like, that, I think that's getting glossed over by a lot of people too. So there's so much to like there. And then, outside of, like, okay, obviously Houston has a better set of ends than Jacksonville. I'm sure there's some other ones I'm not thinking of, but like, not very many teams have a better pair of ends than Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker. Like, that is a nice place to start. Tyson Campbell, really good cornerback. And I know he's getting long in the tooth. Like, I do worry about investing in a player of his age, but Jordan Lewis has been a super underrated nickel for quite a long time at this point. I mean, he is a phenomenal player. He was great last year on a Dallas team that obviously was going nowhere. So I think that is a piece that flies under the radar. Like I said, I think if he's not 30, he's close to it. So you do kind of want to worry about diminishing returns. But his level of play the last 2 years has been outstanding. So there's a lot here to like, and the division is winnable. And like, nobody in that division should feel like they've got it on lock. So there are so many reasons to be like, yeah, man, the Jags could really sneak up on people. And they did it for the briefest window of time in 2023. They did it. And it's been all downhill ever since. So I'm doing my best not to fall for it a third straight year, but I don't know. By the time we get to September, I might talk myself into it again.
I think that's why I can't get a handle on it, is I want to buy in so much. And so there's another part of my brain that's like, hey, man, you did this before. Do you really want to do it again? So I'm trying to poke all the holes in it. But I do think in, like, my heart of hearts, I really do want to buy it. But there is enough that gives me legitimate pause.
I mean, I will say, you mentioned it and I just kind of glossed over it. I mean, that offensive line shouldn't have anybody excited. It just shouldn't.
No.
And Liam Cohen, we mentioned the Bucs screen game last year. That was his thing. So, maybe he's a good enough play caller and schemer to, like, work around that. But we have not seen it at this stop, and we only saw it for 1 year with the Bucs. So I'm not ready to hang my hat on that. And I do think, again, I mean, this is a division where you've got to play Houston twice a year. You got to deal with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Like, and have fun.
And even the rest of that division has some good fronts, right? Like, the Colts have, I think, Laiatu Latu is going to take a step. Obviously, they have DeForest Buckner. And then the Titans, like, off the edge, don't have a whole lot. But Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondra Sweat are a handful, and especially
Yeah.
if the Jaguars' interior is going to be the biggest issue, those guys I think are going to be able to cause some havoc. So it's like that's the other complication, right? It's like the one hole, not the one hole I have with the roster, but probably my biggest concern is that interior offensive line. And you look at some of the fronts in the division, and it's like, oh man, they might have some games where Trevor Lawrence is just getting smacked.
Until further notice, I think it's Trevor Lawrence's destiny to just get beat. Honestly, like I mean, between like his size and his
the curse
athleticism,
of the first overall pick.
I mean, more or less, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of. I'm sure there's somebody whose offensive line got it together, but like we mentioned Joe Burrow's problems. Like that's been an issue in Cincinnati, and some of this is the quarterback, right? Like Joe's the same way, where he's gonna buy time for as long as he can. Like Trevor Lawrence is huge and athletic. Like he's going to extend plays and take hits because of that. But the Jags also aren't doing him a ton of favors either.
Yeah, they kind of let that happen. All right, that's enough. I had to get in my my Jaguar spiel every now and then, every couple of weeks of this offseason. So that's enough of the Jaguars. Dave, who do you got next year?
Well, let's just keep it in the division because I want to talk. And I don't know. You tell me. I think this is a little bit of a spicy take because they've won the division 2 years in a row. I think most people would consider them the favorites to do it again, but I'm a little confused by what's going on with the Houston Texans. So let's talk about it. Because basically, Derek, it comes down to this for me. This is year 3 for CJ Stroud. It's an important year. I mean, obviously, you want him to keep growing and keep getting better. You want him to play better than the whole offense did last season. I certainly don't want to put all of that on him, but you want it to look better. And it needs to look better because this is the last year that he's guaranteed to be cheap. You're eligible for a contract extension after year 3. Now, the Texans don't have to extend him right away, but they probably should. Like, what else do you need to see from CJ Stroud? Like, clearly, he is a franchise quarterback. He is a guy worth building around. He is young. I don't even know if he's 24 yet. Like, he's so good at such a young age. No, he's not 24 yet. It's insane.
That's crazy.
It's insane. So you should extend him this offseason, barring something absolutely terrible. He should get an extension, and then the advantage of the cheap quarterback starts to go away. So year 3 is ideally when your team, the credit card is maxed out, you've got all this stuff, you got all these guys playing for you, and don't get me wrong. Obviously, the Texans extended Derek Stingley. Like, they've signed some high-priced free agents. I'm not saying they haven't done anything, but does this team look to you like a team that's, like, maxed out with a super roster with their young quarterback in his last year before he's eligible for an extension? It doesn't look like that to me.
No, and what's funny is I think last year they thought was the year that they wanted to do that. Where they
did this last year, right?
Right, and now they're paying for it because it didn't work out. And what's funny is, I think we all conceive of like the Texans as being this massive disappointment compared to Stroud's rookie year. They won the same amount of games and won the division. I just think we all thought they could win 13 games. And I think that actually is why they're tough to get a grip on. I think the way that you're saying is like because we love CJ Stroud, because we think D'Amico Ryans is a good head coach and the defense is really good. We all have this idea that their ceiling can be like 13 wins. But then to your point, you look at the offensive roster this year, they scrapped their entire offensive line, which, like, fair. It wasn't a very good offensive line last year. And obviously they fired the play caller, which, again, I think had some struggles last year. They completely reworked the receiver room with, like, obviously they let Diggs go. They bring in Christian Kirk. They bring in a bunch of rookies. But there's so much change in and around the offense that it's hard to actually sell yourself that they can get to the ceiling, right? Because like there's nothing other than CJ Stroud himself. There's almost nothing that, and obviously Nico Collins, he's an incredible player. But outside of those two, there's nothing about the offense that you can hold on to firmly and be like, this will be a top 10 offense. But in order for them to win, 12, 13 games, you kind of need them to be a top 10 offense. And nothing they did this offseason makes you believe that they're going to get there immediately.
It is a nice ace up their sleeve that, I mean, this defense should be a wrecking crew. Like, it should be amazing. And that's awesome. Like, you can lean on them. They can help you, get to the finish line. But if we're talking about real deal Super Bowl contenders, I want a little bit more from my offense. And I mean, let's talk about the offensive line for a minute, because I get it. it was bad, right? And so gutting it is not a bad thing, right? Like getting rid of Shaq Mason, great. Getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for Kenyon Green is a great bit of business. Like you'll probably
Actually, yes, that's a very good.
Yeah. You'll probably be moving on from Chauncey in a year or two the way everybody else has, but like he is a very good player to have, and to get him for a first-round pick that didn't work out.
And style fit, right? Like they are a defense of psychopaths, and he is like the chatterbox. I'm going to hit somebody safety in the league. It's perfect.
He's like, it's going to be fantastic, at least for a season or two. Like I said, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has very rarely stayed on a roster for more than a year or two, but he's been good when he's been there. Like that's his whole thing. So I love that. My thing is, and look, I get it. Clearly the Texans traded Laremy Tunsil because they wanted a change of culture in their offensive line room. Like that's been widely suggested. People have talked about it. It's not because Laremy Tunsil's not a good player. They clearly wanted a new voice and a new top dog in their O-line room. My thing is, that sounds awesome in the offseason when you're like, well, it's the same thing like when you change an offensive coordinator, like, or a defensive coordinator. We needed to get simpler. It was too hard. Our players were thinking too much. That all sounds great in the offseason when nothing's happening. But Laremy Tunsil, in what most people would call a down year, allowed 2 sacks and 19 pressures. Cam Robinson,
yes.
Cam Robinson, who is his replacement, allowed 52 pressures and 7 sacks. And I mean, Cam Robinson is a useful left tackle, but this is a downgrade. Like even if he's on the downside of his prime, even if he's getting older, Laremy Tunsil at worst is a top 10 tackle. And he could still play better than that, you know? Like I know some of the young guys that we were talking about Tristan Wirfs earlier. Some of the young guys have maybe passed him, but you're still talking about one of the better left tackles in football. And I think it sounds fun that you need a new voice in the offseason. And then when CJ Stroud's getting rocked by Josh Hines-Allen 4 times in a game, you're like, ooh, maybe we bit off more than we can chew here.
And that's the thing with the Laremy Tunsil trade. It's like his worst year of his career was last year. And he was like, what? The 9th best left tackle in the league probably still. And part of the reason he was even that low was all like the pre-snap penalties and stuff. Well, that I think you could convince me, and I think the Texans have tried to convince themselves that this was just like a weird culture thing with like the way that the offensive line was set up and all that stuff. And like Laremy Tunsil probably will just not commit that many penalties next year with Washington, and he'll probably be the 4th or 5th best tackle in the league again. Like that is more likely than him, I think, continuing to decline. Whereas you look at Cam Robinson, I think there's this idea that because Cam Robinson stepped in for Christian Darrisaw last year and the Vikings offense continued to be good and he was supposed to be the stopgap left, Band-Aid option for them, that he can be like this competent tackle. I think like rookies aside, he might end up being the worst left tackle in the league. And I don't think the Texans are ready for that reality. Like, I don't think they're going to understand how bad going from good but frustrating Laremy Tunsil to what Cam Robinson is going to be for them.
It is funny because I remember vividly, I think Darrisaw got hurt. I think he got hurt in that Thursday night game against the Rams, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you're like, oh my God. And we were all having so much fun watching the Vikings. And we were like, oh no, like, is the ride over? And then Cam Robinson played well enough that the ride wasn't over. And we were like, okay, Cam Robinson, let's go, dude. And then you got to the playoffs and the end of the season and you were like, yeah, okay.
Like, that's right. That's why the Jaguars, who don't have a good offensive line, let you go in the first place. That's the other thing with offensive line guys is like, or really this applies to like any position group, right? Like if a position group on a team isn't good and then that team is willing to trade away one of those players, the player that you acquired is probably not that useful for you. And that's kind of where I arrived with Cam Robinson.
Which at the end of the day, and like, I don't know Laremy Tunsil. I clearly I've never been in the Texans O-line room. So maybe it's like way worse than what I thought. But like 9 times out of 10, I'd rather deal with a headache of a player who kicks ass and just, hey,
yes,
that's going to be part of our journey this year is we're going to have to manage Laremy, but he's going to keep CJ Stroud upright way better than the alternative. And the Texans disagreed with my idea. And so now we'll see how this goes. I will say, I want to say, You can't blame them for what happened with their receiver core. That's just luck,
Right.
right? Like
100%.
Stephon Diggs tears his ACL. Tank Dell has this gnarly injury. I honestly think, given the circumstances, they've done a decent job of rebuilding it. Like Christian Kirk and Jaden Higgins, with John Mechie still hanging around in the background, and obviously Nico Collins. Like, considering everything that went wrong, they're in a pretty good spot. But I'd rather have Laramie Tunsil and not have the extra third round pick. Like, that's just how I feel.
I couldn't agree more. And again, even if those players end up being good, you got 2 rookies that you're bringing in at receiver. That's just, maybe it won't happen until year 2 or year 3 for them. So again, they're a weird team to get a handle on because we feel like they should be elite, but maybe what they've done on offense, maybe they're not going to get there.
Fortunately, I mean, their defense should mean that the offense's bar isn't that hard to clear.
Right.
But also, like, I don't want to watch CJ Stroud eke out 20 points a game.
No,
like
I don't want to watch CJ Stroud with the 19th best offense. I want to see fireworks. I want that Browns playoff game again.
I want to tune in and watch CJ Stroud just bomb away. I'm not trying to see them gut out 19-17 wins. It sounds awful.
Yeah, it sounds not fun. So maybe these receivers work out. Maybe Nick Caley fixes the offensive line. But I think until we get proof of concept, we're going to have to see. I'm going to go with a team that I expect to be good. It's a matter of how good. And to me, that is the Detroit Lions. And they've...
Okay. I want to hear this because I'm even with like the stuff that they've lost, like I'm just penciling the Lions in at the top. So I want to hear this.
See, I just think there's so many, like, I believe in the floor for this team, right? Like, I think Dan Campbell is top 5 NFL head coach right now. I think the way that he sees the game, the way that he gets this team to play hard, the way that he handles fourth downs and the red zone and all that stuff, I think is truly special. Like, he really has a great mind for this stuff. And I think Jared Goff, while he's not one of the elite tippy top quarterbacks, he is very obviously like a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, especially in the right circumstances. And he's got enough skill players around him to, I think, make a lot of that stuff work. And obviously Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield, St. Brown at receiver, Sam Laporta at tight end. Like, they've got guys. And I think the issue for me is that I think the play calling last year was so good on both sides of the ball, right? Like,
it was pretty
obviously
special.
Ben Johnson, for 3 years running was one of the best play callers, up there with the Sean McVays, the Kevin O'Connells, the Kyle Shanahans, and he really had put together something really special. And Aaron Glenn, I think by the end, had really built something awesome there on the defensive side of the ball. Like, think about how many players they lost last year, whether it was like McNeil at a certain point. Obviously, Hutchinson was playing like the early defensive player of the year, and then he obviously starts to miss time. They were missing DBs at certain points in the year. Every linebacker that was ever rostered for them at some point was injured last year, and they still had a top 10 defense. Like, they were a good unit because, to me, of the way that Aaron Glenn teaches this thing, the way that he knew when to pivot at certain points in the season with the certain types of plays that they were calling. He had this commitment to stopping the run, understanding that if we get into 3rd and 6, we're going to kick your ass and we're going to win. And this isn't to say that John Morton or Kelvin Shepherd are going to be bad play callers next year. But when you're going from, to me, like top 6, 7 guys in their respective roles on both of those sides into complete unknowns. Morton hasn't really called plays in a decade. Shepard's never done it before. You're just leaving a lot of air between what your floor is and what your ceiling is and actually being able to realize it.
It's pretty easy to draw a comparison between the 2023 Eagles and the 2025 Lions.
Exactly.
I know the Lions didn't get to the Super Bowl, but like, they were the 1 seed in the playoffs. They were this amazing team. They lose both of their play callers at the same time. So I don't disagree with you, but I guess my pushback is even a team like that, which clearly suffered from the brain drain in its organization, they still won like 10 straight games or whatever it was. Like, the Eagles were rolling and the wheels fell off and they still made the playoffs because that's how talented they were. And I do feel that way about the Lions. I think, obviously, like, this stuff happens gradually over time. I'm worried about the Lions over 2 or 3 years, but this year, I think there's still enough there that I'm not worried about. It did just like I said with Tristan Wirfs, when I got the notification on my phone a month or so ago, whenever it was that Frank Ragnow retired, I was like, that is a big deal. There are definitely things that worry me about the Lions. I certainly, there's nowhere to go but down in terms of wins. When what did they went 15-2? Yeah, like they're not going to have as good of a record this year. But the offensive line should still be good. Graham Glasgow can play center if their rookie's not ready to do it. You still have, you got 2 great tackles. You got the best running back tandem in the NFL. Jared Goff's a good quarterback. The receivers. And then and I'll knock on some wood again, like if Aiden Hutchinson can be, even if he's not what he was right away, like if he's just a good pass rusher, I like some of the stuff they did on defense this offseason, like very under the radar, replacing Carlton Davis with DJ Reed. A plus, guys. Like that's a fantastic way to replace production in your secondary. So there's enough here that I'm just not losing sleep about the Lions. Like maybe they're an 11-6 team instead of a 15-2 team, but they're still a team that I think should be in the mix. And I trust Dan Campbell's operation that either these are the right guys for the job or he'll find the right guys for the job the way he did with Ben Johnson. Like, Ben Johnson wasn't the play caller from day one. So I trust Dan Campbell to figure this out enough to where I'm all in on the Lions as being a contender, at least for this season.
But that's why I can't get a handle on him, because on top of all the other concerns I just voiced, and then you bring up the Frank Ragnow thing, and I think that's really is important for Jared Goff, because I think Goff is a quarterback who is very, very good at executing what is structured around him. But now if you lose Ben Johnson and you lose Frank Ragnow, who are kind of your pillars of structure around you, I think that can get a little bit dicey. And truthfully, like the Lions offensive line last year, I think, was not as good as it was in like 2023. Like 2023, they were murdering people. And in 2024, they were like kind of good, but a little bit more shaky than probably people realize. And so I think taking out Ragnow there is going to hurt a little bit. But then to your point, I actually do like all the stuff they did this offseason. Like Tyleik Williams in the first round, loved him. I think he's a fantastic run defender. I think he's going to be great for them. Signing DJ Reed to replace Carlton Davis, probably about as good as you were going to do in the free agent cornerback market to replace a player like Carlton Davis. I think even bringing in like Avonte Maddox for depth was like a really good signing for them in that aspect. And so like I liked a lot of the moves that they did. I agree with you that Dan Campbell, like I trust his vision to find the right guys to call the right plays. It's just I even though I believe all of those things and I like the moves that they made and all that stuff, there's just part of me that when I just look at the roster and I think how good can this team really be, I just struggle to feel like they can be that 13 team and win again. Like there's a chance that they can do it because Campbell's that good and some of their best players are that good, but it's harder for me to get there than I wanted it to be, even though I think the floor is probably like 9 wins.
Let me ask you this. And we know how competitive of a division it is. Is there a team in the NFC North that you like on paper right now more than you like the Lions?
I think the Packers are a better football team. I do.
I don't think that's crazy at all.
I think part of the reason I'll say that is I just mentioned the lack of continuity now with play callers with Detroit, right? And like, again, if they might just take the step back like the Eagles did, and then in 2026, they're great again. But with the Packers, I know Matt LaFleur is like a top 5 play caller. Jeff Hafley did some really cool stuff with that defense, and I think they made some decent additions this offseason. And I am of the belief that for as much as we, obviously Dan Campbell's a really good like CEO type head coach, and I think we only kind of envision Matt LaFleur as this like, play caller du jour, like he's just this fantastic, like calling all the right plays. I think Matt LaFleur is a very good, like structures the team as a whole in a very good way. Like the fact that I brought this up a number of times last year, the Packers were like the 3rd youngest team in the league, and they were a playoff team. Do you know how hard, like all the other young teams, it was like the Jaguars, the Patriots, like all these other bad teams. And the fact that they could do it was impressive.
I will say though, we've been saying that about the Packers for a couple years now, and it's still true. Like they made the playoffs in 23 and they made a run. They almost took down the Niners. They did it last year. But at some point, I gotta stop like saying like, oh, look at all this potential. Like I gotta see it, which is, so I'll say 3-year outlook, I'll take the Packers every single time.
Mhm.
In 2025, I might still lean Lions. Although I readily admit, I mean, if it all clicks for Green Bay, they could be like 9-1 halfway through the season. And I'm like, yep, that was a bad take by me. Like the Packers were ready to go. But sitting here before anything gets going, I think I'd still take the Lions at least for this year, even if I do like the Packers.
Let me posit this. What if Jordan Love just doesn't hurt his groin in week 1 this year?
I mean, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. He
clearly was bothered. Last year was
he
awesome.
Clearly was bothered by that all year.
Yeah.
And that, I will say, for any Packer fans that are about to email me, like, I love Jordan Love. I do not understand I don't think he really deserves any criticism for last year. I thought, given the injury and everything else and the fact that they had Josh Jacobs, I thought he had a very nice season. I don't really understand why people critique him the way that they do, but I still think the Lions are a really good team.
That's fair. So I guess here's the last way I would frame it before we move on to your last team. I probably believe in the capacity for the Lions and Packers. I think they have equal capacity for their floor to be like 9 games. Like, I really believe in the floor for both of these teams. But if I had to bet on one team to win 13 games, I think for me it's probably the Packers.
Oh, that's good. No, I think that's fair, because like if the Packers finally like hit on all of the potential, then they could really be cooking with gas. I mean, so, and yeah, like if you told me I had to, like, if I got it right here, what's the Lions over under right now? Is it
10.5?
10.5? I'd be comfortable at 10.5. I'll take the Lions at 10.5, but if it was like 11.5, I'm out. No, thank you.
That's interesting. Like 10.5 to me made me a little bit queasy. So maybe that's like the difference of 1 win is where we're at.
I think we're still trying to adapt to this 17-game schedule. So
that is also part of it.
11 wins sounds like so much, but like for me, 11 and 6 is the new like 10-6 for me, where I'm just like winning 11 games in the old format typically meant that you were like a really good team. Now I feel like 11 wins is like, yeah, you're a pretty good team. Whereas like if you want to really impress me, you got to get to 12 or more.
That is a good point. Like I feel like, 5 years ago, if a team won 11 games, I'd be like, oh, they have a good chance at the Super Bowl. Now if a team wins 11 games, it's like, okay, they could do it, but I don't know if they're one of my betting favorites.
I think
that's
12
a good
12
framing.
wins is, 12 wins used to be good
12
enough
is
to
the
be,
bar now. Yeah.
12 used to be good enough to be the number 1 overall seed in the conference, and now it's more and more we're seeing like 13, 14, or if you're the Lions, 15 is like the new best mark.
Somehow the new norm. All right, that's the Lions. Dave, you have one more team here for us. Who do you got?
I'm gonna get real. Yeah, we're talking about all these high stakes and winning the NFC North and Super Bowl teams. I'm gonna take it to the other side. A team that nobody has expectations for. And I'm confused by the New Orleans Saints because they refuse to act like a team that needs a reset year. And I mean, that's been the case. It's like a meme at this point. I'm not even talking about the Saints' finances, but I just feel like there is an organizational inability to call it what it is for a year. Like, why are the New Orleans Saints going and getting Justin Reed, and which Justin Reed's a phenomenal player. He's great. He's awesome. He's an underrated piece of those Chiefs defenses. Well, why do the Saints need him? And for that matter, I'll even give them the credit of saying, clearly, they can say what they want. They clearly didn't know the severity of Derek Carr's injury when free agency opened. Maybe they found out before the draft, but I don't really buy that they knew in March that they weren't going to have Derek Carr, because why wouldn't you go get a veteran quarterback at that point in time? Even if it's like, Jacoby Brissett, I'm not asking you to go get somebody awesome, but a guy that can start games for you. They didn't do that. And then they pivoted strangely, in my opinion, by using a major resource at quarterback when it was obvious, to me at least, and to a lot of people, that this is kind of a year to like reset and reset the books and just take a breath and say, okay, we pushed our chips in to win a Super Bowl at the end of the Drew Brees era, And then we were reluctant to let go of that. But now we don't have a franchise quarterback and we need to just chill. And is it a big deal at the end of the day to spend the 40th overall pick on Tyler Shough? Not really. But why is it even necessary? You know, I went and looked, like, just bear with me here because I know it's absurd, but like, you can't go get Carson Wentz for like a laughable amount of money, or you know, could you not coax Teddy Bridgewater to come back to New Orleans where he is a beloved figure to play like one more season, or just hand the reins to Spencer Rattler and say like, hey man, here's your golden opportunity. Like, you didn't need to create this situation, but the Saints' inability to call it what it is landed them here.
I love that because I'm like, sneaky don't think Spencer Rattler was that bad last year. I think part of why the numbers look bad is because he was throwing to like Mason Tipton because their two best receivers were off the field with various injuries, so that definitely hurt them. The Tyler Shough thing, I think, kind of captures all of it because on one hand, them drafting a quarterback is kind of this signal that like, okay, we do want to be a little bit more serious. We do try to want to move into something else instead of taking this just like, you know, we're going to sign a vet and just try to compete or whatever. But at the same time, I feel like the Shough pick is a little bit unserious. And this is no shade to Shough the prospect. But to me, if you are drafting a guy in the top 50 with the belief that he is going to be our long-term starter and we want to develop him, in my mind, you should have some other veteran in the room to help them, who's like,
fair,
not really competition, but like they're a serious voice who I think can help them. And I think this was a problem last year with the Bears. Like, they didn't do that. And I understand when, you know, Caleb Williams is the first overall pick, you believe that like, oh, he'll be good enough, it doesn't matter. He's 21, 22 years old. It probably matters to have like a veteran in your ear. And the fact that the only other guys in the Saints quarterback room are Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, who are both draft picks within the last 2 years as well, it's like, this feels more like a Hunger Games-esque quarterback competition than like a we are developing this guy to be our future thing, which I just don't really love that approach to the position. Like, again, to your point, if they were going to do that, just let Spencer Rattler play 17 games, man. Like, why do we have to go draft another quarterback to add into that mix? It just feels like such a weird disconnect for how they're trying to do it.
And I'll even squint. I'll squint and say like, There is some stuff to like about the Saints, particularly on offense. I mean, the defense is its own thing with how old some of those guys. Like, I mean, one of these days, one of these days, Cam Jordan and Demario Davis are going to retire, and Tyrann Mathieu too. But apparently, it's not 2025. But there's stuff I like on offense. You know, like Eric McCoy back healthy is a really underrated player at center. If Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed can stay healthy, that is really fun. Brandon Cooks is clearly like on his last legs, but can still be a useful player. Alvin Kamara, still a really good running back when he's healthy. So like, there's pieces here for a good quarterback to work with. But what sounds more likely to you, Derek? That Tyler Shough is one of the most incredible success stories of all time, comes out of nowhere, and it's just like, boom, yes, he's our franchise quarterback. He took us to a 9-8 record. Nobody was expecting him to do that, and we're building around him. Or he's anything less than that, and the Saints are picking in the top half of the draft in a quarterback-rich class, and they're going to turn right back around and draft another quarterback. Like, that is almost definitely what's going to happen.
Exactly. Like, it feels like they burned this pick on just like there's a 5% chance he'll be good.
Just to say that they were doing something. They
exactly.
Just, like I said, I think there is an organizational inability. And I get, look, I'm from New Orleans. I'm intimately familiar with this team. I get it. Prior to Sean Payton and Drew Brees, it was rough, and you couldn't get people in the stands. And when they showed up, they had bags on their heads. I'm sure there is like an organizational fear to willingly go back to that. But these half measures aren't getting it done either. And so, like, look, it will be so cool if Tyler Shough is actually that good, but the math says you're going to turn around and draft another quarterback with a better draft pick next year, and Tyler Shough's just going to be sitting there as, I mean, it sounds callous to call him a wasted resource, but if you spend a top 40 pick on a guy that you replace a year later, that's just not good roster building.
Exactly. And again, he might be good. We never know with some of these rookie quarterbacks, but it's just like, the reason and the circumstances around like why and how they've got him into the building just feel a little bit unserious. And the other point I would make is like this should have been a very good spot for them to like try something a little bit more creative at head coach. Obviously, you had Sean Payton for, a decade and a half. He was there for a very long time. And then you kind of just keep his guys around in the building with Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael obviously calling offensive plays for a while. I think this would have been the year to be like, okay, all of that stuff is gone. We don't need a head coach who we feel like we know something about. Like, let's go try something new. Let's go get some, random defensive coordinator who hasn't gotten his shot yet or something. And instead, they bring in Kellen Moore. And I don't think Kellen Moore is a bad coach, by the way. I think he is a perfectly competent NFL play caller. It's just that this, to me, again, feels like a move where I feel like you hire Kellen Moore because you can get competent offense out of him, but you kind of know what the ceiling is. But you just feel like, okay, we can bring him in and we can compete. But it's like you're kind of at a point in your roster building and organizational period where you should kind of be looking forward and see if we can just get into a new era of something. And to me, it didn't feel like Kellen Moore was that type of hire. And again, maybe he's good, maybe he's better than we realize, and maybe he can be that guy. But it just like, again, just vibes wise, doesn't feel like that's the type of hire that Kellen Moore really was.
This could be a year, like, obviously the goal is to win, but like there could be a lot of fun in like resetting, like with Spencer Rattler is like, he's a fun quarterback with a live arm. Saints fans use the snake emoji when they talk about him on social media. Like you can get excited about something new even if it's not good. And I mean, I guess all of that is still on the table, but it's just weird to be like, well, we're going to give this kid a shot at least for a year and then he might, then we'll see what happens after that. It's confusing, and that is the theme of the show. So I think it works. I mean, I will say Tyler Shough has done an amazing job of just being a Saints quarterback so far. Like he's already, he was joking with like the St. Brown brothers about maybe Equanimous St. Brown got cut because he didn't like the food in New Orleans. Like he's doing a great job of like playing the hand that was dealt to him. But I'm just like, man, if I had to bet, they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round next year, and we're going to wonder what they were thinking this spring before.
Exactly. And the last thing I will say about the Saints, to give them a little bit of optimism, if the offense is good, it will be really cool. Like the offensive line could be awesome. Like I love Kelvin Banks. Like they've got some guys who can move people. If Raheem Shaheed and Chris Olave are healthy, they could be really good. And Alvin Kamara, I think, was like quietly still really awesome last year. It's just nobody cared about the Saints. Like they could be cool. It's just the way that it got put together feels a little bit bizarre.
I firmly believe that the Saints would have been a pretty good team and like they would have been playing for the playoffs in the final few weeks of the season if they'd had better injury luck. Like it wasn't just Carr, it was all of the receivers.
Both the receivers,
it was Eric McCoy missed a huge chunk of the season. Yeah, I mean they had really bad luck last year that landed them here, but how they're pivoting from it is I think it's weird.
That's going to be it. The Saints are our last team here. I think if we had done this show over the past 5 years, the Saints probably would have been on this episode every single time. So I think they're the perfect team to end on here. So that'll wrap it up. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you again next week.
Thanks for watching The Athletic Football Show. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with us. Like and comment on this video, and we'll see you next time.